Tony, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's always a pleasure to be on your show, Tanya.
Okay, well, it's great to have your expertise and have this dialogue with you, because you were a former member of parliament. You had held several ministerial portfolios. You've been in federal and provincial government. I think you're an expert campaigner. So I guess let's just delve right in. Before the election call, just to give our viewers an overview, or the lay of the land, if you will, the Liberal Party held 155 seats. The Conservatives had 119, the NDP had 24, the Bloc Québécois had 32, the Green Party had 2. They had 3, but then someone crossed the floor. We'll talk about that later. And then there are 5, a whopping 5 independents. That's a lot of independents. So anyways, to summarize, Trudeau had a pretty good minority, big chunk there. But why call the election now? A lot of Canadians are questioning it, a lot of those in the media as well. What's at stake for Trudeau?
Yeah, well, as you said in the opening, this isn't about a dysfunctional parliament that needs a new mandate. It's not that, even though that's what Justin Trudeau said, although he also said very perplexingly, the antidote to tyranny is an election, which kind of presupposes that what we have right now is a tyranny. So I don't know why that was part of his messaging. But anyway, I think that there's 2 major reasons. The first reason is the reason of pure politics. He called the election because he thinks he can win the election. He's been convinced that this is his best shot at a majority government, which is how he wants to govern, rather than relying on opposition party support, even though, as you said, Tanya, it was working pretty well. There was always one opposition party, if not more, that were willing to side with him on his progressive agenda. The second reason, which I think also into Trudeau's calculation, is that things were going to get worse. The economy is going to get worse.
Right.
The Delta, round 4 of COVID could get really worse. So I think he was convinced if he doesn't call it now, he was going to be in a sticky situation down the line. So better to call it now. So I think those 2 things were the major 2 things in his calculation.
Okay, well, let's play devil's advocate for here, or let me defend him for a second. Look at other elections that we've had, provincial elections, albeit, but we have John Horgan, Premier of BC. He upgraded his minority to a majority during the election, during COVID, just a few months ago. You have, for example, New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs. He's increased again from a minority to majority. In fact, several provincial elections have been held, and it definitely seems that COVID has favored the incumbent, and
right.
People have chosen this opportunity to better their government status, Trudeau being the latest. Is he that wrong to, I guess, play politics? I mean, he is a politician after all.
Yeah, look, you do what you can do. And he had the right, as you mentioned at the outset, to stroll over to Rideau Hall and say, look, I want you to dissolve the House of Commons, and I want to have an election. So that's what he did. I don't know about that calculation. Yeah, you're right. BC went from minority to majority. New Brunswick, minority to majority. Nova Scotia, as we're taping this, we don't know the result there.
Right.
It may not work well for the Liberal government in Nova Scotia. I guess we'll wait and see. But those were the 2 first cases that we were talking about there. The first 2 cases were earlier on in the pandemic. I don't know whether the calculation still works now. I've seen the numbers. It's kind of 50-50 right. amongst the Canadian public as to whether Trudeau has done a good job on the pandemic, maximum 50-50 in his favor.